What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nintendo Land. Today we're looking at Kirby and the Forgotten Land as we just got the new trailer, which is actually the third trailer for the game, showcasing even more great things. Now before we get into all kinds of other details with this game, including the mouthful mode, we are going to talk about the bosses, because it seems like we got a good look at almost all the bosses in the game already. I know a lot of people are probably going to be mad, as this could definitely spoil the game a lot, but we're going to go through and point out all the bosses that they've shown off. This could be mini bosses, mainline bosses, and everything in between, because there's a lot of information here to unpack. So, before we get started, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and Nintendo in general. Well, let's take it back to the very first trailer and talk about what we have seen. We see this giant gorilla, and we actually know a lot more information about this guy. This is the strong-armed beast, Gorando, and it seems to be the first boss of the game, as it takes place in this similar area that we've seen Kirby in the first world, which is the plains with the kind of moss-covered city, and he seems to be right in the middle of that city, right by the mall, and this is probably the very first beast you'll fight of the Beast Pack. As the first boss, it looks pretty straightforward. You're in a giant arena, dodging different, giant boulders that he's throwing at you, and his hand swipes and stars will shoot out that you can suck up and spit back at him if you don't have your own ability. But we see Kirby gain one, so there's probably going to be like different copy abilities able to be captured. But just like every 2D Kirby boss, it looks like you just wail on the boss with your given opportunity and dodge when needed. Now this next boss we know is probably the World 2 boss, as we could see World 1 and World 2 from the world map of the gameplay, and World 2 was definitely a beachy tropical theme, and of course we got a beachy tropical wispy woods known as Tropic Woods. Yes, of course we get Wispy Woods back, and the fight seems very interesting. Wispy Woods sits in his central point in the background, and it's your job to shoot things at him, and it seems like things like fire do more damage. But it's also worth noting that Wispy Woods isn't going to sit there and just let you hit him over and over again, which I actually like because it expands the boss battles a lot more. This time, Wispy Woods will actually throw up a metal gate to protect itself from incoming fire and different projectiles from Kirby, and I like how the bosses are a little bit learning, and this makes boss battles a lot better since you can't just completely demolish a boss in just seconds. It seems that Tropic Woods fights with its roots, coming out of the ground and trying to attack Kirby. Next up, we have Meta Knight join the battle, and of course we knew Meta Knight was going to be some type of playable boss here, but if you look at the arena that they're in, this is the Waddle Dee arena, so I'm not 100% sure if Meta Knight is actually going to be a real boss or this more of a training thing for Kirby, so I am not necessarily saying that Meta Knight is a bad guy this time around. I think he's still a good guy, and he's going to end up helping Kirby some way or another, because in this scene at least he doesn't look brainwashed or anything, so I think this might just be a training thing or maybe even a true arena or arena game mode. And now we get into the interesting part. These are some of the new bosses that we've seen. Now, we've seen this in the second trailer of the fake Elflin trapped in a cage. And then we see this weird kangaroo, dog, furry type creature, and we had no clue what it is with it licking its mouth. But now we get a better view. And as we see, this guy is in fact some type of giant armadillo, as it tries to capture Kirby in a cage. Once it captures him, it seems to go into a cutscene. Now, I don't know if this is supposed to happen, but I think this is just kind of a boss battle scene where if he captures you, he'll kind of like shake you up and slam you in the ground or something, or maybe if he captures you, it's a one-shot death where Kirby's just kind of captured. I also think that there's a possibility that maybe this has to happen in order for Kirby to get saved. You know, like one of those bosses where you have to wait for them to actually do something to you where it looks like you're dead, but then, Meta Knight flies in and saves the day or something and then helps you fight him. That could definitely happen. This also seems to be a boss of a world that we might not have seen yet. The only thing I could think of is maybe the snow world, and it's underground so we can't see the snow on the top of the surface, but it looks like this might be a whole world underground, like a mine section, which we often see in Kirby games, and maybe there's like mine carts and different construction things underground. As you can see, lots of lost civilization things like light posts and clocks and stuff all over the room, and even broken cars from a past world. We know that this armadillo thing has been down here for a while because on its back is tons of old signs and stuff from like the old city, and it just looks like he's nasty and gross, but that is on his shell, so maybe this boss's main gimmick is you have to hit him from the front somehow. In this next scene, we see Kirby powered up with his new version of the Ranger copy ability, but he's fighting this feline cheetah. We know that this is probably the boss battle from the amusement park stage, as we've seen that one a lot, and it has the same color scheme, even circus tents and stuff, so this one was pretty obvious. But this seems to be almost like a circus act type of cat, and maybe she does different circus type things to hurt Kirby. Maybe shoots out of a cannon or even walks on like a tightrope at the top. We can see some scaffoldings which like maybe looks like she can use them, but I don't know if all the bosses are going to stay static on the stage or some of them will be able to fly around or move around in the air. I also like how it shows that Kirby can't just keep running away from these bosses, as he got captured by the armadillo, and this time he actually has to jump over these cat swipes or he will take damage. And it also does beg the question, can't Kirby just float in the air forever? I mean, maybe, and maybe doing that, maybe the boss will have a new tactic to try to hit him down, but also you won't be able to attack if you're just floating around, and the boss battle will never get completed, so that is a good thing to think about. Well, after finding some extra pictures online, we know that this is the lethal leopard Clawroline, like Caroline, you see what they did there? And in fact, it does look like she'll be able to jump up in the air really high and come slashing down with her claws like I thought before. We've got a couple of mini bosses before we get into the end of the game, and this is a very familiar foe. And yes, this does seem to be a mini boss, and we get it confirmed in another screenshot. This is Frosty, but this time he's called Wild Frosty. And I think they're called Wild now because of the influence of the new gang beasts that are attacking them. And it pretty much gives regular Kirby characters this weird primal look. As you can see, he looks almost like a caveman in the scene. We see another mini boss, and yes, this is Gigant Edge, and it probably will be Wild Gigant Edge. As you can see, he has a mane of fur around his neck, and also this barbaric sword this time around. We know that Kirby has already captured him because in this scene he has the Gigant Sword copy ability, but the Wild variant, which is a lot stronger and a lot more powerful than the normal versions. And we get another screenshot of another boss known as Silly Dillo, which is probably related to that giant creepy armadillo, but this is just a mini boss version of him. Now before, I didn't know where the armadillo actually was and what boss battle or what area it was, but now it's clear that it was definitely the desert area, because I actually forgot that there was a whole desert biome based on a couple of scenes I just left out. But this guy is definitely the boss of the desert area for sure. So right now that does just leave the snow biome, which I'm gonna guess is probably some type of penguin or probably a giant polar bear. Just like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, I think that makes the most sense. I also think there's a lava area that we haven't seen yet that might be towards the end of the game, as you can see this old factory and there being some lava in the bottom left of your screen. I don't think this is the final area of the game, however, because I still think there's one more part, or at least a different area for the battle arena for the final boss, which we'll get into in a second. Now before we do get into the final couple of bosses, this seems like it could be some type of boss, kind of like Chaos from Sonic, but hear me out. This is some type of weird liquid that doesn't quite look like water, and it's kind of bubbling up and boiling up like it's forming into something. And in fact, it almost looks as if it's forming into some type of green cloud. Maybe it's a new version of Krakow here in this sewer. And it does look like they're in either a sewer or an old abandoned subway. And maybe it's kind of capturing Elflin, and Kirby will have to battle some type of gastrous acid version of Krakow. I don't know, but that definitely could be the case here. Now previously for the snow area, I said the main boss was going to be a giant penguin or a polar bear. Well, I think it might be a giant penguin, because it looks like King Dedede, or at least a wild version of King Dedede, might be the final boss of that area. As you can see in the background, there's still icicles from the windows and dark gray gloomy clouds, along with this ancient architecture that looks like it was some type of old castle that we've seen before. There's also lots of those captured cages in the background, but no, I do not think King Dedede is the final boss of this game, so don't worry. This is definitely just King Dedede being corrupted again in a wild variant, and you can see his wild creatures in front of him as well. So definitely somebody is pulling the strings on Dedede, and you'll have to save him again. And if you look real closely, you can see some type of tribal caveman-like paint on his face, which he probably has a completely different look. Then the very final part of the trailer shows Kirby standing on this like high helicopter-like platform in the middle of this giant futuristic city with towers and buildings reaching tall into the clouds. And I think this is going to be probably the final boss of the game. Now, I still do think the final boss of the game is going to be this giant lion or something. The lion is the king of the jungle, and he's going to be the king of the beast pack. It just makes sense, and there is no reason for the cage to be designed like a lion for there to be no king lion. I mean, the lion even has a crown on him. This is definitely going to be a character of the game. But the lion might not just be the final boss. He might have something up his sleeve, like some type of giant futuristic robot or something. I mean, this is Kirby in some type of lost civilization, so it wouldn't surprise me if this lion creature made some type of giant robot design out of the leftover scraps and everything from the last city. So you can also see Kirby looking up at something very high in the sky, so maybe he's looking up at some type of flying robot or helicopter or something that's about to land on the pad and fight him. This does seem like the end of the game. It has a very climactic feel to it with the sunset and the sky and everything. this just feels like the end of the game to me. And those were all the boss battles and mini boss battles and even battle arenas that we found throughout the last 3 trailers. The game comes out next month, and it's going to be super fun to see exactly how these bosses play and what this final boss actually is. And we know there's going to be even more bosses that they didn't show, and even some extra at the very end, because we know Nintendo and Kirby and HAL Labs all love to put in those extra bosses at the end in like the arena and the true arena. And there's always going to be probably some Galactonite or Morpho Knight return, so I can't wait to see what that's going to be this time around. But what do you guys think of this? Are you guys excited to fight these bosses, and do you think that the last boss is actually going to be some type of giant king lion? Let me know your theories and speculations down below, and if I missed something, feel free to share. There might be another picture out there that I missed, but go ahead and let me know if that is the case. But thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked today's video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Kirby, and I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.